So the first step today is to take 1/3 of a cup of olive oil and put it in your pan. And I'm not going to measure this out. I know approximately how much it is. It's fine to measure it out. I've just made this a few times. And we're going to put that on kind of a medium high heat for a moment to let that get heated up. And we're going to put in a large onion and 2 stalks of celery chopped, and both of these are just chopped. And we're going to let this cook until they're soft, which will be about 6 or 7 minutes. And we'll get these going. And you can brown these a little bit if you want, because it will add some additional flavor. Either way that you do this is fine. Some recipes you can't put the onions and celery in cold, but all I'm trying to do is soften them today, so I'm fine with putting these in like this. So this is heating up nicely. I'm just going to watch the temperature, and I don't want them to cook too fast. I do want this to take 6 or 7 minutes. I'm just going to, so I can tell already that it's heating up a little bit too fast. And so I'm going to turn it down to just barely over medium and see how that does. And I can tell that it's still bubbling a little bit too fast, so I'm going to turn it down to just a true medium. And that's probably for a minute or two is going to be okay, and then I'll probably end up turning it down to a medium low. Because like I said, all I'm trying to do is soften them and give them a little flavor before they go in, before the rest of the ingredients go in for this stew. Okay, so it's been about 6 minutes, and I like the way these look. They're going to hold up well in the soup. And the next step is to add your garlic, chopped garlic. And it's 5 cloves of garlic chopped somewhat finely. And you stir these in and just until you can smell them really well, which usually takes about a minute and a half. And I did end up keeping the heat at around medium for the entire duration of the softening the onions. It's important to stir when you've added a new ingredient to make sure it all gets mixed properly. And we'll let that go for about a minute. Once again, you're just trying to get rid of that raw taste and soften it up so that it cooks nicely and adds flavor to the soup once you start adding other ingredients. Okay, the next step is I've measured out all of the spices. There's quite a few spices in this which make this really fun. There's smoked paprika and ginger. Now the ginger, today I'm using powdered ginger. I'm going to put this in. Oops, I missed some of that. And then we've got cinnamon, 1 teaspoon cumin, red pepper flakes, and that's a to taste thing. So it calls for about 1/8 of a teaspoon. If you get cooking on this and it's not hot enough for you, but the 1/8 is pretty safe. And then coriander. And you stir this all in, and once again, this is just to get the aroma of these until when you can smell it really nicely. It just adds to the flavor, really. You can put it in the soup fresh, but this actually just does such a wonderful job making this just all meld together really well. And then the next thing I'm going to do is add 2 cups of vegetable broth. I'm keeping this as vegetarian, but you can also add chicken broth if you would so desire, if you don't want it to be vegetarian. So I've added 4 cups of broth, vegetable broth, and 4 cups of water, and this all goes in now. And if you can see, that's all bubbling and yum, it smells delicious. So we add all of this. You add your chickpeas, which is one 15-ounce can of chickpeas. And then you add your lentils, which is a cup of lentils, and you let those cook for about 10 minutes. You let this get boiling, so turn this to high now and let this get boiling. And I'm also going to add the cilantro at this point. And this needs to get to a boiling, and then you're going to turn it down to a simmer for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to add a couple more ingredients. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes, and this is simmering nicely. I'm going to take this off for just a moment. This is on somewhere around medium or medium low. I've lost my spoon. Oh, here it is. Okay, so this looks great. And the next step is to put a half a cup of barley in. The original recipe called for a small noodle, but I don't particularly care for noodles in most soups because they absorb so much water, it's difficult. So the barley is amazing. I made this last week. And so I'm gonna add barley to this, and then a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. So I'm gonna pour this in. And I like to get all of the flavor out, so I've got just probably an eighth of a cup or a quarter of a cup of water that I'm just going to add in there. I leave the top on my cans, and I rinse it a little bit, and then I just dump that in so I get all of the deliciousness into the pot. So this, and now we just cook this for about another 20 minutes. It may be a little bit more, a little bit less. After about 20 minutes, I'm going to check 15 or 20 minutes, I'm going to check and see how the barley and lentils are doing to make sure that they're cooked the way I want them. And then it's done. We need to add a little bit of salt and pepper, and there'll be some lemon that we can put in there as well. But basically that's it. So I'll put the timer on 20 minutes and we'll be back. So it's been a little more than 20 minutes. The soup looks great. It's done. I've tested for doneness as I've gone along, and at this moment in time, I have tasted this, and I don't feel like this batch has enough heat in it, and I have not enough salt. So I'm going to put a little bit of salt in. It's probably a teaspoon. I'm going to stir that up. And then I'm going to give that a taste. That's better. I'll leave that for a minute. And then I'm going to put the salt down. And then I'm going to add just a small pinch of red pepper flakes. And if this isn't hot enough, we'll just keep trying, but at this point, it's just barely not enough. Okay, so the last thing we're gonna do is this calls for 4 ounces of cut spinach. I normally have fresh spinach. I didn't have any fresh spinach today, so I keep frozen broccoli and spinach in the freezer just in case. And I am gonna add 4 ounces. I've actually got a little bit more, but a little bit more of frozen spinach, chopped frozen spinach. And I'm going to put that in now and let that cook. And I'm going to let it simmer with that in there for a little while, but the soup is so hot that will cook through pretty much on its own anyway. And I may have to add a little more salt because I've added another ingredient. And then it calls for 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. And so I thought I would just show you how I get lemon juice. I usually have a larger knife, but for this lemon, I'm going to use this knife. I'm going to leave that half, and I just take this lemon, and there are a million ways to do this. You can use a lemon juicer, or there are all kinds of things on the internet, but this is a way I've learned over the years. It works best for me. So I just take a fork in there and I start squeezing and I pull the fork down, and eventually I'm gonna have, it's all gonna be cupped around. And I like this better than the juicer, and just because I like knowing that I've gotten everything out, and I don't know why. It's the best way to do it. So then I just take my fork and I look and make sure there's no seeds in there, and this one doesn't happen to have any. And I take my tablespoon, and you can do like that, you know, you can dip it in if you want to. Sometimes it's hard to get enough out, and then I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of this lemon juice in. And there's just a little bit left, so I'm going to dump it in. This is also to taste. And then we stir that up, and I'm going to bring this back to a boil, and then I'm going to turn it off. And basically, the soup is done. Very easy, very tasty. Serve it with cornbread or focaccia or any type of, you know, any type of bread that you want, but this recipe is delicious. And the recipe calls for a little bit of lemon juice, a little bit of lemon, so I've cut some lemon up. You could also put a dollop of plain yogurt or sour cream on the top, anything you want to, but it just tastes great just like that. Enjoy.